This is something that Kirk Herbstreit has been hiding from the entire world. Now, you probably watched this channel for a while now, maybe even a year, and you're wondering to yourself, how can this guy speak so well? How is his ball knowledge so exquisite? And how can he come out here and pump out a perfect college football playoff bracket like it's nothing? Sometime during the early 2000s, Kirk made a mistake and he can never own up to it. He actually disowned me, so I lived my entire life without a dad. And in spite of that, in lieu of that, I'm going to make a perfect bracket. And let's play a little game with you guys, the viewers. If my picks are not perfect, I'm giving away $100 to whoever has the top comment, and we'll figure that out after the playoff ends. I will seriously find you, your Venmo, your Cash App, whatever you want, $100, because that's how confident I am in my ability. Starting with Clemson and Texas, we all understand the narrative about the Longhorns. They have 0 top 25 wins, although they got a good one in the rivalry game a couple weeks ago against Texas A&M. They've lost 2 to Georgia in their only real tough matchups. So you might say to yourself, this is a trendy upset pick, 12/5. Clemson's hot. They've done it before with Dabo Swinney, multiple national championships, but halt the brakes. Remember the last time the Tigers played a super physical team? Yes, it was week 1 against Georgia, who has a defensive line that's comparable to Texas, and they got absolutely mashed 34-3. Also, recent example, just 2 weeks ago, Clemson played another SEC team. It was South Carolina, who's not even on the upper echelon of the conference. They lost. If you seriously think that they're going to walk into Texas and win that game in Darrell K. Royal Memorial Stadium, you are wrong. Tennessee versus Ohio State, extremely tough pick. I'm being swung towards one side, but I'm actually going to pick the other. So here's what I like about Tennessee. Remember what happened last week, Ohio State and Michigan. They got dominated up front. Tennessee is one of the best D lines in the country. They can play rush defense. They can get after the passer, which is much of what we saw in the game. They also can somewhat, and keyword somewhat, match up athlete-wise with the Buckeyes. So why am I picking Ohio State in this game when they've clearly shown issues with this? Well, first of all, Nico Iamaleava, he is a freshman quarterback. I know he's progressed throughout the season. He's looked better. He's matured. He's got comfortable in that offense, but that's still an extremely tough road environment and an extremely tough ask for a freshman quarterback. Ohio State is going to be the most locked in they ever have. You just lost to Michigan. Your fan base hates you. You're at home. There's no way that Ryan Day and Chip Kelly don't craft up the best offensive game plan to get things going and somehow pull out this game. It will be close, but because of the home field advantage and what transpired in the last week, I'm going to go with Ohio State. I absolutely love how SMU got in the field as an 11 seed, getting the opportunity to go on the road and face number 6 Penn State. But be honest with yourself. Would Alabama have a better shot at winning this game? There is no doubt Alabama's a better team. I get the whole college football politics. You want to make conference championships matter? Okay, we're not going to talk about that anymore. Everyone loves to hate on James Franklin because he cannot win the big game. However, when his team has a talent advantage, he is pretty much lights out. He will no doubt be able to craft a game plan to take care of SMU. Now, one thing I am worried about, SMU wants to make it a shootout. They might be able to get some touchdowns. They also have good rushing defense, but come on. You got Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. Indiana versus Notre Dame, an in-state battle. I haven't picked an upset yet. You guys are probably bored, but am I going with one? Absolutely. Notre Dame has had problems all season long throwing the ball, but typically they can get away with their run game and their defense because they're in control, but they have not seen an offense like Indiana and Curt Cignetti's. If Notre Dame finds himself down in the game early, there's no possible way that they'll be able to claw their way back into it. That's why I'm going with Indiana. Plus, is that really a big home field advantage in South Bend? Probably the weakest environment on this entire list. That's why if an upset was going to happen with a road team winning in the first round, it's going to be Indiana. I hate to be that guy. I don't want to sound like an SEC meat writer, but is what Arizona State did in the Big 12 even anywhere comparable to what Texas did in the SEC or can do or can play to their potential? No. Shout out Arizona State's quarterback Sam Leavitt. We're both from the Portland area. Show out for the 503, but that's not happening. Texas is going to win this game easily. Ohio State and Oregon, this one's tough. It's extremely hard to beat a team twice, and I know everyone's falling in love with the Ducks right now. They had a perfect regular season. When you get in this bracket, everything is thrown out of the window. In Eugene during October, the Buckeyes were a few plays away or even a couple decisions by quarterback Will Howard from kicking a field goal to win that game, and that entire narrative about what we're going to have now would change. On the other hand, there's a few things from that game that I cannot forget. The fact that Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins combined went under 100 yards against the Oregon D-line. I mean, come on, what are we doing? On the other side, the Oregon playmakers dominated, and I mean dominated Ohio State secondary in one-on-ones. There's nothing you can do about that. Oregon is so complete. They haven't shown any weaknesses, and this is coming from an Oregon State student. The Ducks are moving on. Penn State, Boise State, this is not an upset on paper, but I got Boise State moving on. Don't freak out, but hear me out. Magic, aura, momentum, those are all real things in college football, and Boise State has that Cinderella vibe. The program's always had it. Early 2000s, late 2000s, winning those big bowl games, and I think they will this time. They have a really great coach, Spencer Danielson. I'll go more in depth. Tyler Warren will be a big issue for Boise State in their secondary, but this is a team that defends the run well. I think they'll be able to hold their own against the two backs of Penn State. Also, Boise State, remember what they did against Oregon? Oregon has a pretty solid defensive line. Yeah, they have a great defensive line. I know they didn't do amazing in the Big Ten championship, but with Ashton Jeanty, when you have the best player in the country, a guy that you can lean on, there is no way you're not going to stay in the game. I think this is going to be a four-quarter game. And if it's a four-quarter game and you have James Franklin at head coach, what normally happens? You choke. Penn State is going to straight up choke. The Magic will live on. Indiana versus Georgia. This game is extremely concerning for the Bulldogs because they don't know what's happening with Carson Beck. They have Gunnar Stockton. He is a very good quarterback, talented recruit. We saw him a little bit in the SEC championship game, but there's still questions. But it does not matter. Georgia doesn't have to be playing prolific offense. They don't have to be pretty. They can beat you in the physical game. That's how they do. That's how they play. It's playoff Georgia. What happens when they're in the playoffs historically with Kirby Smart? I mean, come on. That guy knows how to win. Semifinals, heavyweight matchup between Texas and Oregon. This might be one of the most anticipated games in the entire playoff. The little things matter in a matchup game. A matchup game is when you go against a team with a similar skill level, but it doesn't when you have the clear advantage. Texas is going to have the advantage in round 1 and round 2, as I mentioned before, but it's going to come back and bite them against Oregon. The reason why the Longhorns lost the first time to Georgia, I was actually at that game. Well, they got stifled by the defense, but the second time in the SEC championship, they lost the battle in penalties and special teams, and those are two things that I think Oregon can win. If you don't do the little things right, you're not going to win the big games. I know Sark is one of the best at crafting game plans. Quinn Ewers, he hasn't been fully healthy. He's been on that ankle. I just think that Oregon has no flaws right now. Boise State and Georgia is a really fun semifinal. I think these teams faced each other in a non-conference matchup in the early 2010s, but that's against the point. This game's happening on January 9th. I'm expecting Carson Beck to be healthy. Who knows? If it's a long-term injury, that would absolutely suck for the entire program, but Boise State's not going to have enough in them in the tank. They had their Cinderella win. That's great, but realistically, talent-wise, coaching-wise, Kirby Smart and Georgia is going to win that all day. Out of any other championship matchup, this is the best one. This one has the most drama. It's Dan Lanning facing his old boss, Kirby Smart. I mean, what more could you ask for? And I know this entire time I've been raving about Oregon and what they've been doing all season, but Georgia has done this before. I'm telling you, playoff Georgia is just a different animal, and I think psychologically this game's going to be too much for Dan Lanning. The last time these two faced off was in 2021. It was an absolute blowout. It was week 1 of the season. I know that does not matter, but when you're trying extra hard, it's against your old boss. You really want to win. You're going to make some aggressive calls like Dan Lanning made against Washington the first time they played last season, and it's not going to work. Georgia, they don't even have a set quarterback right now, but I do not care. This is the most physical team in the country, and they're going to win the national championship with or without Carson Beck. I mean, Trevor Etienne's back. Yo, do your thing. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'm curious who you guys pick, so go in the comments and leave them, and make sure to subscribe because we have a full bowl game prediction coming soon. All of the bowl games, Bowl Madness, Bowl Mania, that's coming either tomorrow or the next day. So thank you guys so much. I've been Saturday Shenanigans, your home for unfiltered college football. Come on, Kirk. Kirk, just claim me already.